Good morning. Welcome back. You're watching Daybreak on this fourth day of March 2025. In studio, I have Wilson Susion, who is a former nominated Member of Parliament, and of course, the former Secretary General of the Kenya National Union of Teachers. Good morning, Mheshimiwa.
Yeah, good morning, Sam, and good morning, our viewers.
Great to see you back in studio. We also have David Ochieng, who is Member of Parliament for Ugenya constituency. Good morning.
Good morning, Sam. Good to see you this morning.
It is good to see you. And you're expecting the arrival of Beatrice Alachi, who is the Member of Parliament for Dagoretti North, as well as the Senator of Makueni, Dan Manzo. And shortly after, we also expect to have Brian Leshengo, who is the chairperson of the RUPHA, an association of rural, urban, private hospitals in the country. They'll be here to talk us through the situation in the country when it comes to matters of the Social Health Authority. You may have seen the report on the Auditor General, by the Auditor General on the procurement process of the system that is costing the country 104 billion shillings. But also this morning in the papers, 124 billion shilling wheat import sink farmers into losses is a main story in the Daily Nation. You see the details of how much the company is given the green light by the government to import wheat and their respective quantities. You see them there. But also local wheat growers have been hung to dry after the government allowed a group of millers to spend at least 124.5 billion shillings to ship in over 3.2 million tons of the same product farmers harvested in plenty. And yesterday, the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture gave that order or direction that the wheat that farmers are still holding and aggregators are holding will be bought by the NCPB. On the front page of the Standard, Ruto doublespeak. President Ruto's stance on public fundraising has taken a curious turn. Months after banning Harambees for state officers, he now leads multi-million shilling church donations, having recently pledged 120 million shillings to a city church. As criticism mounts, his defiance grows, insisting his contributions are a divine duty. And I want us to begin there with the Harambee politics in as far as this is concerned, because a lot has been going on. And the president has been speaking about it. He also did so on Sunday. We'll be listening to some of those voices. But let me begin with you, Mheshimiwa Ochieng, on where we are with this particular question, because sometime last year, we'll hear the clip, the president instructed the Attorney General to come up with a fundraising bill, Harambee bill. Nothing much has happened. So where are we? Are we serious on this issue?
I don't think we are. The issue of Harambee in this country, it will not end, whether by law or by act. I don't think there's a time when we'll say that we now stop politicians or anybody else for that matter from conducting Harambees. In any case, actually, the law that was being proposed was not to ban Harambees. The law being proposed was to regulate how it works, how it's operated and all that. But I think in this regard, leaders, including myself, must lead from the front. The main issue is not about how much someone gives.
Yep.
It's about Kenyans asking, where is this money coming from? That is the problem, normally. You know, when you see a member of parliament or a senator or a governor or the president giving 20 million, 5 million, 8 million, and everyone knows their salaries,
yep,
the question that arises is, where is this coming from? And the first thing that comes to the public's mind is, this must be public money.
Yep.
Okay? And so I believe that, for me, what I would want to be done, if there is to be a law, is that if you're contributing, then you must tell us where this money is coming from.
Right. Transparency.
So that we know that David Ochieng yesterday gave 1 million shillings at a fundraiser somewhere in Vihiga. Then I'm able, if I'm asked by EACC or DCI, I'm able to say, this part of my salary, or I ran a law firm, this came from my law firm, or I ran this business, this came from my business, and that there's no conflict of interest in terms of how that business was procured. Because the main issue, and the biggest issue, especially for public servants,
right,
is that people know how much they earn, people know their sources of income, and so when you give those kinds of those amounts of money that can't be supported by your earnings, then of course you must ask questions. Yeah.
All right.
Those questions will not stop, you know, with this donation,
yep,
and it will not stop by someone telling us, for example, that you know, those who don't give don't want to give or are selfish. No, we should just be clear that the principle here is not that we should not give.
Yeah.
The principle here is, if you're a public servant and you are giving, we should be able to relate what you earn and what you are giving.
Do you agree, Mheshimiwa Susion, that that correlation has to be there?
Yeah, indeed, yes and no at the same time, because people would have different sources of income. Others are engaged in businesses and they have business programs. And so giving is a personal decision.
Right.
And I want us to draw a boundary between actions of faith and action of magnanimity, where people donate in church, others donate land, they donate so many things to support the church.
Yep.
So I think we should be able to draw a dichotomy so that then an action of a person in church is treated as personal conviction, and because you, Sammy, you know your property, you know your money, you know what you have. If you appear in church, you know what you can give as per your ability and as per your personal conviction. So to me, I see no contradiction, and I think the country should have a law, should still have a law to guide on how Harambees should be conducted, because at the end of the day, despite the fact that there are various sources of funding intervention to get rid of Harambees like the CDF and the rest and all manner of funding, still there are aspects of Harambees that goes on, and that needs to be guided so that we don't do it in a way that that is not orderly and that is not good for the country. Right.
And of course, we'll be listening to what the president said on Sunday as he made that promise of 20 million shillings to a church in Nairobi. Joining us now is the Senator of Makueni County, Dan Manzo. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning.
And it's good to see you again. We're waiting for that clip so that we can hear what the president had to say. Do you have that? Let's listen to the president.
Lea Mungu hatumpatii binadamu. Si ndio? Matoleo tunayotoa sio kwa sababu tunampatia Bishop Mwai. Hatupatii congregation hii, tunampatia Mungu. Mimi mwenyewe nitatoa milioni 20 kwanza. Mimi nimejaribu sana kutafuta kwa Biblia. Na mimi ni msomi wa kiasi wa Biblia. Nimejaribu kutafuta mahali inasema ati ukimpatia Mungu unarudishiwa na askofu. Iko mahali. I am a product of giving to God. And I am unapologetic about giving to God.
All right, products of giving to God. But now in July last year, specifically on the 5th of July, he had said something to the effect of controlling or managing how this works.
No state officer or public servant shall participate in public contributions or harambees going forward.
And the instruction was that a law would be enacted in Parliament. Also joining us this morning is Beatrice Elachi, the Member of Parliament for Dagoretti North. Good morning, Mheshimiwa.
Morning, Sam. How are you?
I am all right. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Senator Manzo, help us here, because the president says he's a product of giving, and he does not see anywhere in the Bible where you give to God and then it's returned by the bishops. Of course, we know the story of the Soweto Catholic Church in Harambee, where the president gave and promised to give, but that money was returned by the Archbishop, or rather, by the order of the Archbishop of Nairobi.
Yes, I want to say that the Bible says what your right hand is doing, the left one should not know, meaning that giving should be, you know, a matter between you and God. You don't have to go public, you don't have to announce. And, you know, for the church to have behaved the way it did, you know, every public servant is known what they earn. Yeah. So their tithing is specific. And their giving, you know, is a sacrifice. So you sacrifice to God what you have worked for. And you know, God is not poor. God is the one who builds churches. They are built by faith. And what happens is you should not praise yourself about it. You remember the Bible talks of a lady who gave, the smallest piece of money, but gave it with the heart. It is what she had. It was a sacrifice. So, and also the Bible talks of those who go and chase them, and most probably are not serving God. So in this particular case, where you have such huge promises,
right?
And in fact, when we went to Bangarini, the president was reminded of a promise he had made to a church 2 years ago, which he had never kept, but promised to make it good that particular day in Magarini. And therefore, you can do these promises. These people were even given land belonging to the government. King David was not allowed to build the temple by God, but he prepared transparently a lot of materials, which some of them belong to his government, which were going to be used to build the temple. And everything was done with transparency. So one thing I know, if public monies are budgeted, for a particular thing, including the office of the president, it has a budget. If you have an excess, you should plow it back, to the budgeting, so that like in a place, in Cheptumo's, Honorable Cheptumo's funeral, where he gave 20 million to build a hall, of course that's the work of the Minister of Education and the CDF. But just a few kilometers away from him, the journalists showed, children going to school under a tree, and sitting on stones. So what is the best thing to do? Who is the best person to help? The ones who are already doing well, or the ones who are already doing badly. So I think the first service of a leader to the people is to do justice. That's what will make God happy. To make sure there is equity, and to make sure that there is fairness in whatever you do. But it's not to just thump in churches that my work is to give. God doesn't want to hear that. God wants you to worship between you and him. That's what the Bible says. It is between you and God. You don't go and chase them and boast about it. It should be quietly done.
Senator, how about when the congregants are the ones who are asking for your help? They tell you that we have a certain project, we are seeking your help. What do you do?
First of all, you already passed a law. You have already given a presidential direction. No one should participate in Harambees. Churches in honor of what has been agreed upon, because the churches also made a request that this bravado of politicians coming to compete in a church who is giving who, ends up in a situation like that. And that's how, once you have passed that law, then you remain the only one conducting Harambees. I know that I have attended the Pefa church one time, and I was surprised how they do their giving. They don't even do Harambees, and they have the most beautiful churches around. They do the preaching, and they say, as you leave church, you leave your offering, somewhere outside there, the church, as you walk away. And surprisingly, this church never goes bankrupt, never goes broke, has beautiful facilities, nobody's under pressure, nobody makes requests, and I think that's how God's giving should be done. It should not be under pressure.
Let's listen to what the former Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka has said in regards to this issue.
And of course, kupeana 20 million, it's okay. We congratulate Bishop Mwai. Amesema atakuletea another 100 million. That's okay. When you compromise IFMIS, then you allow yourself kubeba tu pesa na kupeana kiholela. I want to tell William Ruto, Kenyans will not be bribable, if that's correct English.
Now, Mheshimiwa Elachi, the former Vice President believes that this is money gotten off the IFMIS system because there has been challenges with the system itself. I'm told you cannot hear you.
Okay. I don't know.
Okay, unfortunately, we need to fix your mic. As we do so, Mheshimiwa Ochieng, so that allegation, and I hear Senator Manzo here saying that State House has a lot of money. If you have excess, you should plow it back or give it back to the budget for further use. Are we saying these are public resources being given out?
I think the president there says this is his personal donation, and we all hope it is. because then there's nowhere, and I've sat in the budget committee now for the last 2 years, there's nowhere where you budget for donations for the president or for any public servant. So my assumption and belief is that what the president is giving is personal money. I don't think anybody would give public money.
Right.
And if that would be the case, it would be extremely unfortunate. Yeah.
Interesting. So then, what do we do with this particular issue? Because, again, communities will have different needs, whether they are schools, they are churches. Sometimes they will make requests, but at the same time, there's the social inequality that you find in different places in this country. What do we do to fix some of those issues?
Sam, I know I've been in the show for so many times.
Yeah.
And there's something I've been pushing forward through. I think everyone now talks about it, and I hope that every time we talk about it, someday it will become a reality. Something called equity, something called fairness, something called, planning. Because one of the things that we messed up as a country, you would know that the last time we planned in a manner that every Kenyan knew we were planning was when we did Vision 2030. That's the last time we planned as a country. From that time, everybody comes with their own thing. Remember Uhuru Kenyatta came here, he told us he's going to do Vision 2030. Then before long, there was something called Agenda 4 or the Big Four agenda.
Yep.
Then before long, now we are dealing with better. I mean, countries of the world. And some would imagine, just across the road in Tanzania, there's a blueprint that they follow. The president comes in, yes, he has his views on what should be done, but then you walk within that straight line. That's how Germany grew. That's how general Europe grew. Remember the so-called Marshall Plan? So what we must do as a country, that we must have a plan, and this plan must take care of every part of the country. You hear what the Honorable Manzo has just told you. It's not equitable. It's not just fair that in this country, there are schools that receive 20, 30, 40 million shillings every year from the exchequer. Then those that receive zero. You know, we have an issue in Parliament today, and committees have been being reorganized.
Yeah.
And part of why you are doing reorganizing committees, and part of why we are having problems, is resource allocation. That in this country, there are counties that have $500 million, $1 billion to do rural roads, maram roads. Then there are those that have zero.
How does that happen?
That's what I'm telling you. That, and I told us in the budget committee. So we do the budgeting process, then someone somewhere still goes and messes up with that process so that we don't get equity. I'm telling you that in the last budget we did, when we now ended up looking at the figures that came out after we had done the budgeting process, Samburu has 0 shillings in rural roads. There are 2 counties somewhere that have 700 million, 400 million, 300 million. Kisumu has 18 million. Siaya has 56. So it's about equity. And so I agree with Honorable Manzo. Let's plan this economy.
So in that budget committee,
yes,
how do you determine who gets, who doesn't?
That's the point I'm making to you, that there's no plan. So the whole thing is arbitrary. It's not based on any plan.
And the House is the same.
Of course, this has happened almost since independence time. And that's the point I'm making to you. That if we are to run a country that is based on equity, based on the law and the Constitution, we must do these things right. And the failure there is not for anybody. I believe the failure there is for us in Parliament who do the budgeting. Okay? So the issue even for Harambee, and I've told you what I think about it, it may be difficult, but I want the EACC and the DCI. Manzo and I have been in Parliament now. He's having his 3rd term, 2 terms in National Assembly, 1 in Senate. I'm having my 3rd. People know how much we earn. I'm a lawyer. People know that David Ucheng runs a law firm and all these kind of things. But if I go tomorrow and give 1 million shillings, and it's in the public domain that I give 1 million shillings, I should be asked the source of that money. I must be.
Do you ask the same of the president?
That's the point I'm making. It can't be for anybody else. It has to be even for the president. We should be told.
So have you seen the law in Parliament now?
No, it's not come before us yet.
Anything at the Senate?
Well, that particular bill came to Senate about giving and churches. It didn't go far. And after Senate debates it, then it has gone to the National Assembly before it goes to the President for assent.
Okay.
But Sam, one thing is very clear. You see, we are told not to judge because judgment belongs to God. But one thing for sure is God does not accept stolen sacrifices. And that was the case of Cain. You know, there are sacrifices God does not accept. And in fact, what you do with stolen sacrifices and bravado sacrifices, you get curses. There is no way God will bless you for trying to chastise them before him. God needs humility and clear. You know, if you have to do a thing like this as a president, you must say this is, he has said it is his money, which I believe is a lie, because we know all his businesses. It's another lie told before God.
What do you doubt? I mean, he's a man of means.
We know his salary is a public. And we know, you can estimate all the businesses the president have. He goes to...
What do you estimate?
And how do you first of all, almost in every weekend, there are promises running to 100 million every weekend. And
personal or for the nation?
Well, this time it was cleared that it is personal. And then we go to Magarini, and a former member of parliament reminds the president, you see this church conducting service here? 2 years ago you came here. In fact, you promised several things. None of them you have ever done. And now he's reminded 2.5 million shillings you promised. So he comes up again and says, now I am going to give 3. And in fact, that other church, even another church which has not made a request, where my speaker's father was baptized, he said, even that church, I'm going to give 1 million shillings. And then who follows up? Up to the next day, you meet in public. Most probably this church, which has been given stolen land belonging to the army, which has been attached to. Yeah, it's a stolen land. It means if I am the president and I give a land I know very well is controversial, I allocate it to the church, I know it belongs to the army for the purposes of government, I am stealing for the church. And then, of course, somebody else is going to challenge it in court or in politics. It's going to be a debate. And then you also make a promise of 20 million. Suppose now another 2 years go, and the president goes back to the church or in the vicinity and is reminded you promised 20 million here. Where is it? So I think these promises should be realistic.
Okay.
In fact, you should not promise, just donate. President Kibaki never promised anything. He just did things.
Okay.
And I think that's the best template Kenyans have for a president.
Let me hear from Honorable Elachi, because now we have her mic on. I trust that. But what's your take on this? And yes, giving is personal, but are there different rules for those in office versus, and also depending on the cadre of office that you occupy?
You see, some in the morning.
Carry on.
When you have such a topic,
yeah,
you feel very sad if you're a Christian. Because it's a topic that you ask yourself, really, do we really have to have this? Were we set into this topic? Because we might be talking something where His Excellency wanted also us to just talk about it, to set us up. Because honestly, it is his own giving. He stood there, he said he's gone. I was in the church. He said, I will contribute 20 million. He didn't contribute it there, so I cannot prove to you, Sam, that I saw the money. It was not there. So the day he takes his contribution, that's another thing. But then, the 100 million, he told them, I will bring my friends to do this Harambee. Now, the challenge you asked us very well, Sam, which is correct. What do you do when the congregation has stood fast, has told you we need this, we need this, we need this, we need this? What do you stand there and tell them? The Kenyans we are. Either way, they will say something that is just out of context. So he was answering on what they have said. So we need to go back and ask ourselves, do we go back and tell Kenyans, especially Christians, because Muslims don't have this problem. They do their mosques, they do quietly, they finish, they do those things. And tell Christians, it is time. You understand, we cannot do Harambee. But we cheat, Sam, we cheat. Right. Let me tell you how. If we stopped Harambee, we will still send by M-Pesa. Isn't it Harambee going? Haven't I sent with M-Pesa? Mchungaji will stand on the podium and say, "Ata nimepokea kutoka kwa Mama Dago." He will say. He will not remember. It is not. So it is something Christians need to, all of us, because we have done it, not today, not yesterday when the president was doing. It came back in 2013. Kibaki had toned it down. Yep. But from 2013, it just blew out. And it became another thing. So, same Christians who woke up in the morning, voted and said, the president is the president, the good one, who prays. You come back to them and tell them he cannot remove Sadaka. I am wondering with that Kenya today. And it is a very sad scenario.
And at a personal level, if you want
For
to...
me, in a personal level, I agree with everyone.
Yeah.
Why can't I just give it as my contribution? I don't need to shout. Honestly, in God's eyes, I don't need to. That one I agree. But then the congregation also does not trust them. They are mchungajis. So you have to explain to them what you are giving and tell them. Yeah, that's how Kenya we have become. We are so mistrusted to each thing that Kenyans will not even... Now, if you do it quietly, they believe... The same way they were saying, they didn't know where their 420 million went.
Yep.
This one that now they are saying the land was given free. It was never given free. They took their 400 million and they paid, because it's not only them who are on that land of... It's the same problem we had. You remember there was a time in Uhuru's time, in Mihango, the army had to take the Vifaros to protect their land. Somewhere in Isili at the end, in Mihango, in Eastlands. But the president had to negotiate. And those guys had to pay Air Force for them to secede this land back to the Mwananchis who used to stay there. So there's no free land from the military.
All right.
I believe if there is free, then Bishop will have to explain to the congregation, then where is 420 million?
Okay.
So he paid the land. That's how they got the title.
All right, Mheshimiwa Elachi, allow me to take a short break. I'll give you a few seconds after the break, Mheshimiwa Susion, to wind up on that. You're still watching The Break on this 4th day of March 2025. We have lined up and up next to speak about the report by the Auditor General in regards to the Social Health Authority, the digital service that they are using, what issues she raised. After the break.